Virtual reality in Star Citizen was supposed to be decades away, at the very end of a list of Chris Roberts' wild and unhinged ideas. Something we would roll our eyes about whenever mentioned in Discord. And instead, out of nowhere, it's suddenly here, in the form of an experimental mode. And after this week, I gotta tell you guys, this is far beyond just an experiment. This feels like full-fledged virtual reality. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by Pimax, who were kind enough to let me do laps with their flagship, the Crystal Super. And through our community, a coupon code you can find in the comments. No strings attached, just take their headset for a spin and let everyone know what I think. So, I didn't go soft on this. I pushed this thing inside Star Citizen to the absolute limits of PvP and PvE, and I'll tell you all about it. The setup was extremely easy. I downloaded Pimax Play and Steam VR, set my resolution, and then just opened Star Citizen. I was pretty mind blown at how easy this was to get into the game and how little I had to mess with it. It was just plug in, set the resolution, and go. I'm running an Asus Astral 5090 for a graphics card, and in virtual reality, I'm playing with the resolution of 3400 by 3424 at 72 Hz, and I had the GPU running at 100%. So after applying DLSS upscaling at a quality 66% setting in game, this kept the GPU from bottlenecking and the gameplay specifically in combat very playable. Having the crazy amount of detail is nice, but here on this channel, we needed to perform for combat. So let's be clear, with the Crystal Super, the limit is never going to be the headset. This thing is going to go as hard as you want to push it, but your computer in Star Citizen won't be able to match that pace. So keep in mind, some of these resolutions like mind-boggling 8K, okay, yes, 8K, are definitely out of reach with Star Citizen's current optimization and today's hardware. But safe to say this headset is future-proof. You could also push the resolution higher depending on what activity you're doing. It's really easy to just bring up the Steam VR menu while in game at any time and increase or decrease the resolution on the fly. There's a couple important settings for Star Citizen that will need to be adjusted as soon as you get in for the first time, and that's the I struggle with this word, interpupillary, guys help me in the comments, distance scale will decide the field of view inside of VR. I really recommend doing this while you're inside of a cockpit and matching it to your computer chair and legs for scale. Try to align the cockpit and flight controls in the game with your own setup. The immersion you'll get from this is just insane. Once you dial this in, you're really going to feel like you're truly flying these ships for the first time. Once you're in game, everything is intuitive and identical to how you've already played Star Citizen in the past. The only difference is now you're in Sword Art Star Citizen, or the Matrix if you will. And trust me when I say, because the footage does not do it justice, it's just insane. I find myself seeing everything in the game from an entirely different perspective, and it makes you immediately appreciate all the detailing of the persistent universe we've all overlooked in the past. Picking up on Rust and Grimhex, tripping balls going through the wormhole to Nyx, or aiming down the sights of your rifles. It reminds you how none of this would have been possible if CRG cut corners and did any of this the easy way. The Crystal Super captures all of this in insane detail. I finally found the ceiling of what I could pull out of my 5090. It's never hit 100% until now. And the 9800 XUD. Closing in towards 4K resolution, but the frame rate here wasn't combat viable. And to think that the Crystal Super can push double that to 8K, it's just crazy. A word I've found myself repeating just all week this week. So once I had calibrated the settings to match my computer setup, I decided I had to get real combat experience in virtual reality to do this video justice. My audience are combat enthusiasts after all. We're not here for mining in our prospectors, you guys know that. The FPS combat was out of this world and is hands down my favorite part of Star Citizen's virtual reality. Really feel like you have unique control over the weapon barrel without being forced to change your posture or head position, which doesn't exist in other games. Decoupling your weapon from your eyes or your facing direction is just something we're not used to in Star Citizen, or really any game in general. It's hard to explain, but this was my favorite part of the virtual reality release. The FPS gameplay translates almost perfectly, bar for a few weapon scope issues and some weapon holding camera issues. You're quite literally looking down the sight or aiming using your laser weapon attachment as if shooting from the hip. So half the time I'm playing FPS, I'm just aura farming, executing players and NPCs from the hip or aiming down the sights. It's just crazy. FPS virtual reality in Star Citizen is legitimately almost perfect. The flight combat, it's another story. Given flight in Star Citizen is so heavily reliant on the instrument's UI, it's really difficult to separate the flight and physical ships flying through space behind the UI. Problems that, for the most part, were sorted in 2D, looks like they need to be changed in virtual reality. Probably just a scaling issue. My understanding is the UI has some roadblocks that are making it difficult to port over to VR, and it shows. When you go in, you'll find the UI to be extremely distracting and a little obnoxious, but I'm certain in a few months they'll have made it far more reasonable. With that being said, after getting a few hours of flight in, I found myself able to manage it better, and it became more and more playable. All in all, I thought it was surprisingly playable, and dare I say competitive. If you have the hardware and calibrate the settings for performance, I'm confident this is already there. By the release of this video, I felt I was only missing maybe less than 10% of my usual performance due to the less frames of playing in virtual reality, and the physical aspects of using the head tracking in comparison to virtual reality. There's something to be said when you've got a fighter on your six, trying to bury him in chaff behind you, and all while looking behind your computer chair to see a full and clear screen of your opponent. You can't do this with head tracking. After 4 days, I gotta say, I'm really in love with the virtual reality experience, and it's really grown on me. And the Crystal Super has been an awesome vehicle to get me through that. The weight of the Super can take a couple days to get used to, but after the 3-day mark, I completely stopped noticing it. Something I was originally concerned about. But the resolution and the performance is just insane. I upgraded from the Quest 3, which I had 2 days on prior, and the image quality just nowhere comparable in my mind. So make sure if you do pick up the Pimax headset, get yourself a little discount below. All in all, for virtual reality and FPS, Star Citizen just feels like it's a few months in the lab away from being perfect. Only held back by less than a handful of camera or UI issues. If you're like me and really value the immersive experience in Star Citizen, I seriously recommend trying virtual reality. It really feels close if you can afford the hardware, because it will take a lot. I'm really looking forward to creating more VR content in the future. Virtual reality has sent Star Citizen into the stratosphere for what our favorite MMO can now offer. And I'm reminded of just how far this game has come. For as much as we all complain about some of the decisions made, like Tier 0 item recovery, the new ballistic meta, or the solo Idrises still roaming around, these details, which to us feel like these huge major issues, at the end of the day, nothing at all comes close to this. A space game that used to have 50 player limitations on servers, with 30k bugs to ruin your session every single night, to now this. So thank you to the people over at Cloud Imperium Games that made it all possible, led by Chris. Thank you to Sylvan and the VR team, this is awesome. Thank you Pimax for this awesome headset to see one of the most ambitious games ever made through. It has been surreal. And thank you all to the devs who made 2025 such an awesome year for dogfighting. I hope you, my audience, all have a Merry Christmas. Can't wait for making new content next year. It's going to be a big one, and yeah, GG's.